Mason Rocket Center, showplace of America's space program, and home of U.S. Space Camp.
Where we do real astronaut conditioning and see the space program in the making. We live in a habitat. It's just like the real space station. And see what it's like on board an orbiter in the Space Dome Theater. The training center is where the simulators are and the fun begins.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Apollo astronauts anticipated difficulty walking on the moon. Since the moon is only 1/6 the size of the Earth, they trained on a device that offset 5/6 of their weight. The microgravity training chair.
Okay, what's your name? Where are you from?
Will Ellison, and I'm from Brussels, Texas.
Okay, Willis, what was your mission position this week?
Mission Specialist 2.
What did you enjoy most about Space Camp this week, Will?
Making friends.
Okay, thanks.
During extravehicular activities, astronauts are forced to work in the frictionless environment of space. Gemini astronauts train for spacewalks in the 5 Degrees of Freedom training simulator. Mercury astronauts had to be prepared to stabilize their spacecraft should it begin to tumble out of control. To rehearse these procedures, they used a device similar to the multi-axis trainer. Survival in space would not be possible without the support of pressurized suits. Constructed from soft, durable fibers, they allow us to work freely while protecting us from the dangers of space. Placing a manned space station in orbit has become a goal of both NASA and the American public. Just as engineers must design an orbiting structure, so must our trainees.
Hi and welcome to the Space Show. Today we'll be interviewing these 4 people: James Holmes, Brian Galloway, Mandy Granger, and Christy Curley. We will be interviewing about a space station.
We're going to have our audience ask the questions, and our guests here will answer them. So we'll start out with some questions. Yes, sir.
What's the name of your structure?
The name of our structure is the Ellison Estate. Yes, sir.
What is the purpose of your structure?
The purpose of our structure is to support life while enjoying it. Yes, sir.
About how much will it cost?
It'll cost about $10 million.
Yes.
When will it be going into space?
It will be going into space in about 20 years. Yes, sir.
How long will it be used?
It will be used however long you want. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Will there be life on the space station? And if so, how will it be supported?
Yes, there will be life on the space station. Supplies will be shipped up to the space station by rocket. Yes, sir.
What kind of people will visit this space structure?
Practically anyone that goes through training. Yes, sir.
What is the space station made of?
The space station is made of thick glass and metal. Yes, sir.
How will it be placed into orbit?
It will be built in orbit.
Yes, sir.
How will the waste be disposed?
Waste will be stored in a 4-foot deep tunnel beneath the bottom of the space station.
In case of an emergency, how will inhabitants escape?
With an escape vehicle.
Okay, I have a question. What is an important part of this space station?
The life support systems.
What makes what about your structure is important?
Important parts. It has a lot of room for experiments. Okay, thank you. Here's our answer.
That's all the time we have for now. Thank you.
Early astronauts, upon returning to Earth, splashed down into the ocean. Then they jumped from their capsule into a rescue raft and paddled to a basket suspended from a helicopter. Of rocketry, the Redstone was developed as a surface-to-surface missile. Scientists added a spinning upper stage to create the first multi-stage rocket, the Jupiter-C. On January 31st, 1958, it launched the first U.S. satellite, followed by Alan Shepard on May 5th, 1961, the first American in space. At Space Camp, we study rocketry and propulsion by launching our own model rockets. shuttle crew have made final preparations and are ready for launch. Teamwork is vital. Everyone must perform this task with clock-like precision.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
most complete rocket display on Earth. Many of the items now on display were designed and built here in Huntsville. Marshall Space Flight Center developed the rockets that launched America's space program. Marshall continues to support our efforts through research and development, as well as providing facilities for training and flight control.
I would like to thank you for coming to Space Camp this week, and particularly I would like to express my appreciation to the parents who have permitted their sons and daughters to attend this special program. You know, Space Camp is really set up to encourage young men and women to excel in science and math. We use the space program as a focal point. We believe the space program is important to this nation, and certainly in the future it will be. And if we can teach you the importance of having a good foundation in science and math by using the space program, then we feel we've accomplished our objective. To the future, I say to you, young men and women who will be our scientists, our astronauts, and our pilots in the 21st century, I wish you well, and I know you will be great achievers, and I know you will make us proud. And I'm looking forward to the day when one of you space campers plant the U.S. flag on the surface of Mars. A gentleman who's been very much involved with our program, Air Force Colonel, three-time Space Shuttle astronaut, Mike Mullane.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, kids. You remember me, right? gray-haired guy at the Space Dome talking to you. I got to spend some time with your children after the movie The Dream is Alive, in which, who is the star of The Dream is Alive? Right. I didn't, I just kind of threw that out, but The Dream is Alive is a story about the shuttle program, and on my first flight we got to carry the IMAX camera that filmed that. If you haven't seen that film, it's an incredible film, and it's playing twice daily over here at the Space Dome. But at any rate, your kids got to see it, and I went in afterwards and answered some of their questions, and everyone had questions. It was the tip of the iceberg I was able to touch there. I wish I could have spent about 2 weeks with them. Questions were great, really some great questions. Have I seen UFOs? No. How do you go to the bathroom in space? Remember that? You go in a vacuum cleaner. Don't try this at home, kids. Your child really has learned a lot about space since they've been here, and I want to salute you parents for having taken the financial burden to send them down here. I think that is absolutely an act of love. It shows your concern for your child's education. I think that their presence here at Space Camp well could have planted a seed that in fruition is going to have your child marching off as an astronaut, a scientist, an engineer, and making a great contribution to this country. And I salute you for that. Now let me leave you with a thought as you drive home and fly home today about where your child fits in human history. Let's do that by looking where maybe a past generation has fit. I think it put it in perspective, it's easy to see. My grandmother was born in Minnesota in 1897. And she went by horse-drawn wagon from Minnesota to Oklahoma around the turn of the century. And she remembers that. She had recollections. In fact, she actually wrote down some testimonials on that, about that trip, going by horse-drawn wagon. Now, that same woman, in August of 1984, stood on a Florida beach and watched her grandson ride a spaceship into the sky. You think about that. In one person's lifetime, to have remembered a horse-drawn wagon trip and then to watch her offspring ride a spaceship. I mean, that is incredible. That is mind-boggling. Now let's look ahead to this generation right here. In 30 years, we're probably going to be putting men and women on the planet Mars. And who are those men and women? There are these people right here. That generation, from that generation will be the first men and women who will walk on Mars. And it well could be one of these children right here. And it well could be that they go on to do that because they were here at Space Camp and were inspired by what they saw and wanted to learn more and did. And I think that's absolutely wonderful to think that I might have talked to the first Martian. Just think, you may be sitting down to dinner tonight to Martians. I know you think that every day you deal with Martians, but literally it could be true. You could have the first Martians sitting down at your dinner table. So think about that. Think of where human history has been. I'm sure all of you can have stories about grandparents, and then you look ahead. We get so wrapped up in our day-to-day lives, we don't tend to stand back and look at it synoptically and see where human history has been and where it's going and how our children are going to fit in on that human history. But again, I want to salute you graduates, you campers. I want to salute you parents, the counselors for helping to educate them. I wish you all the very best of luck.
I'm Joel Wiley with the Thiokol team. First to graduate is Christy Curley, Mission Specialist 1 from Deatsville, Alabama. Mandy Granger, pilot from Deatsville, Alabama. Jennifer Gelston, Public Affairs Officer from El Paso, Texas. Will Ellison, Mission Specialist 2 from New Braunfels, Texas. BJ Harrell, Payload Specialist 2 from San Marcos, Texas. Keith Remy, Tracking Officer from San Marcos, Texas. James Holmes III, Commander from Fort Campbell, Kentucky. John Hopkins, Payload Specialist 1 from Van Buren, Arkansas. Danny Galloway, Launch and Landing Director from San Antonio, Texas. Lance Finley, Flight Director from McCullough, Alabama. Kip Vinson, Orbiter Systems Officer from Sterling, Illinois. Brian Galloway, Mission Scientist from San Antonio, Texas.
We are now ready to take our place among the space flyers, scientists, and engineers of the 21st century. We have taken our first steps in the continuing space science education program. Ahead is Space Academy Level 1 and Aviation Challenge.